I woke up feeling horrible today. Um, Overwhelmed. Feeling like life is shit, as the title says. Today was a little different than for the past couple months. Anytime I've woke up feeling bad, it was the suicidal part of me that would go active. So those thoughts of, fuck, I want to kill myself. This morning wasn't that. This morning it was different. I woke up feeling overwhelmed, and rather than feeling suicidal, what seemed tempting this morning was psychosis, oddly enough. I woke up with this fucking feeling of pressure and all of that. I'm not good enough, and all that kind of talk Ryan said a bit before when you get feeling down. Everything I've done on the channel's embarrassing. I'm not really helping people. I want to quit everything. But today, all of that came with this weird, just overwhelming, not overwhelming, because I didn't give into it, nearly overwhelming impulse to escape the world, not through suicide, but by actively letting go into psychosis and just stepping the fuck out of this world into a delusion where, and I mean, there's lots of euphoric aspects of delusion and psychosis, but I wasn't even wishing for that, a euphoric escape. I was willing to accept any mixture of horror and bliss just to get away from the heaviness of this fucking world. Okay, so that's not a great idea. Don't worry. I'm not making any bad decisions. So everything I just said were things I was feeling and thoughts occurring to me. So yeah, I'm not trying to worry anybody. And also, I don't know if it was wise to come on or not. I might take this down after. I guess part of the reason I jumped on is I knew full well that I needed to relax, and a wise part of my brain. And so I'm already doing better than I was earlier. And I know this state isn't going to last. I'm going to feel better. But a part of me said, look, just forget about everything. And in fact, I had to check with a couple people to make sure they were okay first. So I knew I could focus on myself. And then once I knew that the world was fine, I could just focus on myself. Part of my mind said, okay, don't think about the channel at all. And then I think, for some reason, the rebel inside me that says fuck you to every rule or piece of advice decided to turn and head straight into this instead. So this could be really stupid coming on in this mood, but it was about not running away from anything and turning directly into something instead. And so that desire to let go into psychosis, I used words like overwhelming and stuff. That was how it felt in the moment. But no, I'm not giving into any of this. And so I have been dealing with these kinds of strong emotions long enough that I know not to make decisions in this mode. And I know that the problem is the state I'm in as opposed to the actual individual issues at the moment. But right now, it still feels like life is shit and that everything's overwhelming and that there's not a place for me in the world. But it's okay to feel that way. And for those of you who get into these states, stick with what you know full well. So I know that in a better state of mind, I don't agree with all the things that have gone through my head. So I'm not going to give in and give up on anything. Also, I'm not fooled into thinking I will feel like this forever. I'm already feeling better than I was earlier. And I know I'm going to feel just fine in a little while. So, have you ever considered, We Are Victorious says, have you ever considered all your feelings are correct no matter the pain or result? Yeah, there's nothing wrong with feeling this way. It's unpleasant, but there's nothing wrong with feeling this way. So Ryan McNeil says, combat veteran here. 3 tours Afghanistan, running the trauma room. Now I am a therapist for combat veterans. Excellent. And you're right. There's plenty of people. Oh, what that reminds me of immediately is there's plenty of people who have it far worse than me. And I'm already feeling suddenly, very quickly, my mood lifting now. I was already doing better than before, but already very quickly my mood's lifting. And I didn't come on here looking for help. Like, I knew I would be fine either way. I knew I had to push through it. Part of it was this weird response to, okay, just forget about the channel. Actually, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to go onto the channel right now and share this. And part of me did think, like, and again, I don't know how most of you people see me. I'm not sure what the appeal of watching me is. And I'm sure there's a wide variety. But a few people have said they find me wise or courageous or any of that shit. And part of me thought, like, fuck, just go online and show yourself feeling really shitty so that nobody has too high an opinion of you. Like, let everybody know that you hit these fucking garbage moods too, and that you also feel like, don't just show the helpful side of you to everybody and give them too false an impression. So, but yeah, I didn't come on here looking for help. I came on here just to share this for some weird reasons I fully don't understand. But thank you very much, everybody, for the help you're offering. So Shaman says psychosis is probably worse than death. Maybe that's naive. I don't know. Well, to say worse than death, I don't consider death a bad thing. So, well, psychosis is like just about like so many things in life. It can be wonderfully beautiful and it can be a trip straight to hell. And yeah, I was just sharing that desire to let go into it. There's no danger I'm going to. I'm very aware of all of the reasons not to let go into uncontrolled psychosis. So I was just sharing what I was feeling. There was no danger here. So Empress of Eden says, you are a good person, Mercury. You are strong. You are wise. Thank you for sharing the deepest parts of yourself with us. Thank you, Empress. That's beautiful. And that's exactly what I was talking about before, is I wanted to come on weak and confused because a lot of people are seeing me as strong and wise. And I don't want anybody to put me on a pedestal or think that I'm also not as fucked up as everybody that you see helping me here, or me helping on here. I got a heart from Pineapple Soda. Thank you very much. I love you too. So Ryan McNeil says, the only way to stop the thoughts is to do something else that shows progress or connection. These videos give you connections, but don't change your thoughts. Now, that is excellent advice, but this is going to be one of those things where I'm going to see the truth in both ends. So there's a lot of truth in what you just said, but I have learned a lot from not stopping my thoughts in the past, observing them and letting them run their course, and also admitting to the truth within it. And so I'm beginning to feel better and better, and I'm thinking more clearly now. Once you're feeling better, it's easy to say, okay, life isn't shit. I was confused there. Life is beautiful. Instead, I recognize the truth of both. Life is shit. It is horror. It is child abuse. It is rape. It is torture. It is needless suffering. It is disease and excrement and rotting corpses. That's true. Life is also unbelievably beautiful. It is butterflies and rainbows and laughing children and a mother's love and a million other beautiful things. All of heaven and hell are laid out right before men's eyes, yet they cannot see. We see one state of it at a time, and most of us see the in-between, the real world that is neither heaven or hell. But all of heaven and all of hell is right there. And so my thoughts that life was shit and all of that overwhelming bullshit that I saw is all there, and that's a valid perspective. But the exact opposite of all of that is also there, is also a valid perspective. So that's the way I deal with it. But I do understand that for many people, if you're caught up in a bad train of thoughts and you don't have that like philosopher aspect of me that wants to dive right into it. Okay. Never be letting those kinds of fucking thoughts run if you think you're your thoughts or if they're convincing you. Even at my worst today, nothing was convincing me. I wasn't going with anything. I was observing the desires, the compulsions, and the thoughts within me, and I wasn't binding with them. So I do choose sometimes to dive into a dangerous emotional state and to allow and even validate very dangerous thoughts. But because I am well skilled at this and I was not caught up in it and believing it was me. And also, there's a lot of people on now all of a sudden. I want everyone to know I'm not asking for help here. I'm sharing a difficult, dangerous state that I am entirely capable of dealing with. So nobody worry about me. I'm perfectly fine. This is something I go through all the time. Although this desire for psychosis rather than suicide is different at the moment. Going on lately. I go through this shit all the time. I'm not going to kill myself. I'm not going to give up. Nobody worry. I'm just sharing a part of myself that I haven't shown on the channel before. And I don't know why, and maybe this was a bad idea. But so Bob says it's called humility. I guess maybe what I was saying about not wanting people to see me as just strong and wise. If I am strong and wise, fine, but I'm also weak and stupid. And Ryan McNeil says people have a need to connect, bracket these videos. Yeah, and so that for a moment is actually bringing my head more into the real world. And you're right, I'm alive on fucking YouTube right now. And what me and Ryan Holsapple are doing here is a lot about connection. And that is really the driving force for my partner Ryan, is connection. And yes, these videos are providing a magic digital portal for us to connect with each other all over the world. So We Are Victorious says, I love you, dude. I watch because you speak from your soul. Well, I love you as well. And I can keep doing that. So good. I'm glad that's why you watch, because I can keep doing that. And in fact, I'm kind of surprised by that in the state I was in, for me to just come on like that and start talking to people. It's a bit surreal right now that I actually did that. Grizz says, I'm late, but the title speaks to me. Yes, Grizz, I know you will understand that feeling. And so in the description of the video, I put a link to a song that you may get a kick out of. It was what I put on and was listening to when I thought of going live. And so that's where I took the title, Life is Shit, from the Dead Milkman song. Now, Ryan McNeil says, progress equals happiness. So just some sort of progress will make the biggest difference. Not sure if I agree with that, although Peterson says progress, moving towards a goal, gives you meaning, but not happiness. Now, sometimes progress provides happiness, but I'm not sure that progress towards a goal always equals happiness. Because, for instance, yesterday was a hard day on me. I put a lot of energy out helping a few people, and that all went fantastic. I made great progress yesterday. Nothing went wrong last night, and nothing went wrong this morning. I woke up feeling just so energetically and emotionally drained, I suppose. And I've been taking on so much, like this channel has required so much change and growth from me. And all the other things that doing the channel requires me doing as well. And I could easily have woken up feeling a wonderful sense of progress and like everything is going great. So for me, with my bipolar disorder, progress doesn't always mean happiness at all. As soon as I run out of energy and my deep depressions come up, they can twist anything. So of course they can take failure and use that against me, but they can take success and use it against me as well. And I'm actually not going to go with that, but I could dig up a whole bunch of things that depression could say about the channel to me, like about the success of the channel, in fact showing me why I should. Yeah, so sorry, Ryan, because McNeil, because you're saying a lot of great things, and I realize I'm coming up with the opposite of a lot of it. So I say sometimes progress equals happiness, but for me, at least personally, it doesn't always, and I need to remain aware of that. So if I wasn't aware of that, or what I've seen some other people do who have emotional issues, is as soon as they have an emotional issue, they think to themselves something like progress equals happiness. I'm not happy, therefore I'm not making progress. And because I'm feeling bad, something must be wrong. And there's absolutely many, many times for people, even with emotional disturbances, where it's true. Your emotional state relates to a real problem in the world, and that emotional state makes sense, even if it's maybe turned up too much. But myself and others that I've worked with or known closely with emotional disturbances, you can feel horrible about everything just because sometimes you feel horrible about everything because you're fucking crazy or imbalanced or whatever it is. And if I recognize that, then I can go, okay, there's not necessarily a problem with anything. I don't necessarily have to examine that I'm a piece of shit who isn't good for anyone. I don't need to necessarily examine that there must be something wrong with the channel because I'm feeling this way, because I can feel like shit for no fucking reason. And it's better to let clearer-minded parts of me decide as to whether or not I'm making progress, and not to assume that because I feel like shit, something's gone wrong. Yeah, Eddie Murray says psychological approach, like Tim Freak said. Absolutely. Paralogical approach, like Tim Freak said. Yes. And when I wake up, and it's like more commonly, I've been waking up with suicidal thoughts over the past couple months while doing this channel. And yeah, as I wake up, those thoughts are like a storm. I've gotten to the point where I don't connect to them immediately at all. But I observe them, but it takes me time. I've got to get up and I've got to do some work on myself, some meditation, some music. Like there's different things to do in different states, but I have to do a bit of work to expand that place and create a second spot. And that's what's happening now. I imagine a difference in the way I'm talking and my body language is beginning to show. While I'm getting over that sense of feeling overwhelmed and it is diminishing, it is also coexisting now with the sort of philosopher part of me that is responding to all your guys' ideas now and is operating as well. So, yeah, and I didn't come on here because I needed help or anything. I came on for whatever fucking reasons I said before, but absolutely I would have proceeded either way. And what I'm already doing now is I would have proceeded to make space for something else within me put whatever difficult thing I'm experiencing, like, in its own place and be aware of it so that I'm not connecting to it and so that it's not doing any damage, but allow it to be what it is. Try to feed that hurt part, whatever love or support I can. And I would have, whether I came on live or not, either gotten over the feeling or I would have created a dual space and found a way to hold some more positive emotions at the same time. But absolutely what Tim Freak says about the paralogical, I guess definitely there's sometimes where you feel like shit and you can get out of it. But if you're feeling like shit and it just isn't an option to just get out of it, you can make room for more than just feeling like shit. And you can feel like shit and feel fantastic at the same time in a weird way that's really hard to understand. Yeah, I seem to have drained out a lot of that emotion now. I'm not just making space. It's still in there, but I'm feeling a lot better. And which is funny because I expected to come on, do a quick video, just get it out, and I was expecting to feel the exact same, right? Like as I got off the call, and then I was going to work on feeling better. I'm already feeling much better from this interaction. Or I don't know, maybe I sort of popped the blister here by talking to the camera. Maybe even though I wasn't looking for therapy, it was somewhat therapeutic. I don't know how much longer I'm going to stay on. Part of me wants to like just jump off right now. But I'm going to take a look at a few more comments. So Sally, and Sally, me and Ryan both looked at your artwork. Fucking beautiful. That's amazing. I loved your paintings, and we are thrilled that you want to provide some visual art to go along with the channel, especially like when I took a look at your work. You are a brilliant artist. I was really, really surprised how high quality your work is, and I'm not just saying that like in any way. Your work was fucking fantastic. I love it. So everyone can look forward to in the future getting to see some of her work associated with the channel because she was kind enough to offer her artistic contribution to the community. So thank you so much for becoming a part of this community, Sally. And I loved your artwork. Just absolutely beautiful. I'm really looking forward to seeing more. But anyway, Sally says the flaw is not a drawback in the observation of character. The dark light provides contrast. The deeper we can experience horror, the higher we can see the better side. It's a burden to be that big. Yeah, absolutely. And so maybe for a moment, I will address just that issue on its own. I do think there is something to the idea of the good and bad emotions that to be able to experience, 50% of the ecstasy and positive that is possible for consciousness, you also have to be a being capable of going halfway to the extreme of negative. And that in some sort of metaphysical way, I believe that consciousness requires both ends of that. And so the deeper the horrors you experience, especially if you're somebody who has a lot of fucking mental, emotional problems that you don't see many other people having, it seems to me that the further into hell you travel, the further into heaven you get to explore. That seems to be some sort of metaphysical, magical property of reality or consciousness. And I wouldn't I wouldn't give up my angels to get rid of my demons. It's worth it. It's worth being this way. It can be difficult, but it can also be incredibly beautiful. And so I just agree with everything you just said there, Sally, and I've experienced that myself. Okay, so Ryan says, if someone says don't think about pink elephants, no matter how hard you try, you will continue to think about them. The only way to stop is to hop on a horse and ride down the trail. Yes, just trying to get rid of a thought is just going to keep it going. And while I do find there are times when I do want to investigate a negative state and I do want to think about pink elephants, but you're right that when you don't want to be thinking about pink elephants, the answer isn't to sit and say, I don't want to think about that. It's to find something else to focus on. You're absolutely right. So Ryan says, you were happy until then, though. So then what was the spark that caused poor feeling? Well, I'm bipolar. And so I go up and down. And I can definitely crash into a bad mood when something bad happens. Of course, that can ruin my mood. Although I can also be in such a great state that something bad happening doesn't actually bring me down in the moment and might bother me later. But I will also crash for no reason at all. I tend to in fact, I can get depressed because things have gone so well for a couple days. And it's like, I have been operating in a positive mood for so long. Sometimes it almost feels like there's a battery inside me for positive energy. And sometimes it just feels like I've used that battery right up. Like I had a great couple days that were so fantastic and I was feeling so much heaven that I am just exhausted and collapse into a depression, not because anything went bad, but because everything went so good and I'm exhausted from things being so good. What caused me to collapse into a depression? And so what caused the overwhelmed sensation today was not that anything has gone bad. Everything is going well. I mean, like there have been some problems recently, like since the channel started. Of course, I've encountered some real problems. Those were not the issue today. The issue today was that I put out so much energy over the past while. So it's that effort, the trying to change and grow, even when there are improvements, is tiring. And when I'm helping people psychologically, like talking with people to help them through things, or when I use magic, it uses up a lot of energy. And I've been using up a lot of my psychological, emotional, and spiritual magical energies on this channel. And this morning was absolutely just a depletion of that, combined with I have so many balls in the air that I have to keep up with. So in fact, yeah, and I was feeling that desire to escape into psychosis because there is so much now that I need to do in the world this summer compared to other summers. And I was feeling exhausted and depleted of energies, and things are going well, and I need to keep it going. And that was why I crashed emotionally. And Ryan McNeil says, I wish you the best. Thank you. I really appreciate you popping on here. You've had a lot to say, and your comments and the way they dived into me really picking them apart. And sorry if that was annoying, because there was truth in everything you were saying, but I was finding paralogical truths that contradict what you were saying without negating them. Some people find that really annoying. I'm sorry. I hope you didn't find that annoying. That was me engaging with your intellect, not dismissing you. But I've really appreciated your participation. And I think you redirected me exactly like you were talking about. So that absolutely happened. You got me focused off of it and feeling better. Even though that wasn't even necessarily my goal. I guess I wanted to come on, share that one fucked up state for all those whatever reasons and then jump back off. I was going to take care of myself on my own. But yeah, you definitely altered my mood by engaging the philosopher. So Benedict Sycamore says, in terms of my emotional state, the biggest struggle for me isn't choosing differently, but remembering I actually have the ability to choose differently. Yes, absolutely. I find that each emotional state for me comes with that it is a fact, and it wants me to feel like I will always feel that way, and that its set of thoughts are the only real ones, and I have no other options. And these emotional states tell me that they will be here forever. I find that the internal gods are all very, like, they want to claim the territory and claim that they have always ruled my internal territory and always will. And it feels like you have no other choice. But you're right. If you can just realize you do have the choice. For me, the biggest thing is that mindfulness. And it took me a long time. Like a few years ago, if I woke up in a really bad state, it was a terror on my fucking family. Like my siblings or parents or some friend or my wife or somebody was going to get a phone call and I was going to be just screaming and crying and explaining why it's other people's faults I feel this way, and jumping into that something must be wrong if I feel this way. And what is wrong isn't me. I don't need to change. Other people need to change. And I would be just a terror on people when I woke up in that state. It's taken me like a decade of working on this. But over the past couple years, I've gotten much, much better. And so far, let me see. I think this year, and by this year, I mean this calendar year. So far for 2019, yeah, I honestly think I have never once needed to work on that when I woke up. When I wake up feeling suicidal now from these years and years and years of working on it, as I wake up to that thought, realize it is the depression active, not me. And I am able to be at least mindful of it instantly and to separate myself from it. As a result of that, I no longer wake up and harass people. I can wake up, I can be with that mood, and it takes me time to get the rest of me going and to make space for that other part, or to put that negative emotion away completely. It still takes me some time to work on it, but I start off at that mindful place of being aware of it. And so I'll get up feeling like, oh, I should call so-and-so and tell them this is their fault. But when that thought occurs, I don't believe it. I look at that and I go, oh, fuck you. You know better than to be blaming this on everyone else. This is because of the emotional state. And no, even if that person has done something wrong to me, I control whether or not that affects me. And it's not their job to be a good person so that I can experience life properly. They're doing the best they can, and what's right or wrong for them to be doing is between them and their conscience and God. I'm not going to wake up and use what other people have done to me as an excuse to not do what I know I need to do, which is take responsibility for the emotion myself. And it can take me hours to get myself into a decent place, but I've at least gotten to the point where when I wake up, I'm mindful of it and I'm aware I need to do it. Okay, so Ryan McNeil says, I stand behind my comment, meaningful progress equals happiness. I wish you well. And I will think about that a bit more because, a lot of people right now are debating exactly what happiness means. And actually, if you ever want to come onto the channel, I would love to just talk to you about that one statement. Meaningful progress equals happiness, and to have a good discussion of it, we would have to really dive into what you mean by happy. And that's a far bigger philosophical issue than a lot of people think. Yeah, if you ever want to come on and talk about that, I would love to discuss that with you. Does meaningful progress equal happiness? Pause Time asks if I have any thoughts on Islam. No, as far as my comparative religion studies, I have not looked into Islam significantly at all. I don't know enough about Islam to have any thoughts on it. And yeah, I don't think I've never had any Islamic friends that I was close to, so I don't understand on that level, and I've never studied Islam myself. So I really don't have any thoughts on that. Okay, so Marion says, what are the things you think are emotional crutches that you have that affect emotional progress? I'm not sure. The emotional crutches that I lean on, none of them are ones that I'm not okay with. So for instance, it's not like I don't use any drugs that I'm not okay with using. I don't have an emotional crutch that I feel is wrong or that I feel bad about after that I can think of at the moment. Now, for instance, I collect vintage toys. And for me, my toy collection is an emotional crutch. I use it, I let my inner child out, and I collect and play with vintage toys. Now, for me, that's an emotional crutch. I lean on that when I'm feeling overwhelmed. I will take time off to let my inner child loose. It's an emotional crutch, but as I don't, and it affects my emotional progress, but I feel it's actually beneficial. The more I work with my inner child, the more emotional progress I've made. And as fucked up as I may seem right now, for anyone who doesn't know my backstory, I have made more progress than I thought was possible. So the first 6 years of being bipolar for me was just a cycle of out of control psychosis to the point where I was institutionalized against my will, brought down by heavy psychiatric medications. And my psychosis were so intense that if I hadn't been taken out of them, I would have killed myself just out of physical and mental exhaustion. I would have continued to not eat and not sleep and run around in whatever magical delusion until I dropped dead. And I would be institutionalized against my will, come out of that, and would fall into such a deep depression that I was constantly suicidal for almost 2 years at a time. So I had this weird, fucked up year cycle. And I mean, depressed to the point where I didn't have the energy to use the washroom. So I would sometimes have stomach cramps for days because I was too depressed to bother going and taking a shit. I was put on permanent disability, and the expectation, like what we were hoping for, was I could just get to where if I didn't have to worry about life, like if I was on disability and had, like, my parents dropped off all of my supplies to me, it was zero responsibility. Just, can you be alone unobserved and not kill yourself? Like, can you just not kill yourself when you're depressed? And can you get just like enough control of the psychosis that you're not being locked up again? That was something I didn't know if I could succeed with. And there were years of hard work at the beginning to put myself together in any way, like even to feel safe was zero responsibility, and just to feel safe to not fall into psychosis or kill myself. And as fucked up as I still am, I am so much better that I did not imagine it would have been possible 10 years ago for me to be where I am now. And even 5 years ago, I would not have believed that I would get myself to the point where when I woke up feeling suicidal, I was actually mindful of it instantly and starting at that point. I had years and years and years where I'd wake up caught up in it. I'd go through half the day just to get to the mindful. Now to wake up in the mind, and it was years and years and years of work just to be able to do that. So I've come so far. I'm very happy with my progress. And also, despite the title of this, I'm not unhappy with anything. And this doesn't even require the progress on the channel. I get that now I'm starting to provide some value to the world or to some portion of it. But I don't even need that. I'm okay. I am like, because I'm honestly doing the best I can and I'm following my inner meaning and I do feel all delusionally in touch with God and everything. I feel like I'm living out the life I'm supposed to be living and I'm doing my best. And I was perfectly content to live out the rest of my life on disability. And I was perfectly content just to keep to myself and to help the small, group of people I'm helping. I guess the only thing I wasn't content with, or I'm not content with, is I was supposed to be buying the house I was in when I moved here, and it turns out that's not going to work out. But like on disability, I'm allowed to own my home. But that was my one disappointment, and the one thing I've been like, I hope there's still some way, because like my great grandfather built this house. Only my family has ever lived in it. This house means a lot to me. But that was the only thing I was like, that was thrown off. If I could just live out the rest of my life here in this house and follow my path, I'm completely content with that. And I'm also content with the ups and downs of, like, obviously I want to keep learning how to do better with the negative emotional states. I don't want to spend so much time in hell, but I'm not railing against the fact that I go in and out of it. I accept that's life, and it's, as much as life is shit and hell, life is also beauty and heaven. And yeah, I wouldn't trade this in for a normal life. Sam Harris, I've heard him more than once say that people tend to think we want we want to experience the extremes, but that really most of us are happy with being in the middle. And he says, I think I've heard him say this to more than one person. If I offered to you, listen, we can do one of two things. We can either go out, just have a nice dinner and enjoy some pleasant conversation for 2 hours, or we could go and by whatever method, like whether it's virtual reality or taking a drug, I forget what it was, but he was like, or the other option was we can go and literally go into hell and have 1 hour of the worst suffering imaginable, followed by 1 hour of all the most incredibly ecstatic experiences possible. So you have a choice between a nice, normal, pleasant, boring evening, or we're going to go into the worst of hell, like the absolute maximum negativity that you could possibly experience, which you have never experienced yet, for an hour, then the positive end, the best experience possible for an hour. And he gives that as the point where it's obvious nobody wants that. But I'm really tempted by that. And part of me just thinks like, because fuck yeah, an hour in full hell's long. If it was like 15 minutes in each, I would jump on that. But even with the hour, I'm tempted. Although the big thing for me would be, wait, which order is it? Because if it was heaven first and then hell for an hour, I wouldn't pick that. I'd pick the normal night. But if it's hell first for an hour and then heaven, yeah, I think I'd take it. And part of me is like, okay, you really sure you want to jump into that hour of hell? And I've thought about this a lot because I found it very interesting that it seemed to Sam that the obvious answer was you want a nice normal evening. But for me, right away, it was the pull of like, really? Heaven and hell, like the full extreme? I was really drawn to that. So I'm not going to complain about being bipolar, considering I have to like honestly admit I was really drawn to whatever it was he was going to do. You take a pill to experience it in the hypothetical situation. That really appealed to me. Okay, so Tiggly Wiggly says that's what social media is for. We all got your back. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. Oh, Grizz said bye a while ago, and I think I'm way behind. So I could be talking now to people who are already gone. But Grizz says he'll catch this on replay if I leave it. I have no idea if I'm going to leave it or not. I'm not good at deciding what's worth leaving up or not. In general, often I just like say to Ryan, "Do you think I should leave it or not?" And I go with whatever he says. So I'm not sure if I'm going to leave this or not. But sorry. So back to the comment. That's what social media is for. We all got your back. I really appreciate that, and that was already sinking in as I was reading through this. I seriously was not looking for help with this. I was looking to turn into what I wanted to run away from, mixed with thinking, it'd be good to show the shittier part of me because some people have been very complimentary. And I want to make sure I'm not showing like a false image of only my good side here. So those were really why I was coming on. And the thought that like some people might benefit from, people like right away that he could identify with the title. I also had the thought before jumping on, it could be beneficial to people feeling shitty, to be able to connect with me also feeling shitty for a minute. That was my reason for coming on. However, this element of the community stepping up to help was immediately apparent to me. And I really appreciate that. Even though I wasn't coming here for your help, I'm really grateful so many of you wanted to help me. And I really think I'm going to be okay. Like I keep doing better and better, and life's fuck the mix of heaven and hell. But I'm really learning to ride that, and I think I'm going to be okay. And I'm handling the stress of taking on this channel surprisingly well. I don't think I will need to come to the community for help, or I won't need to often. But I do really appreciate that offer is there. And even if I don't need much help from the community with my down states, if we can get more lateral, horizontal connection in the community where you guys are offering the same support to each other that you're offering me, I would love to see that grow if it happens naturally. So I really appreciate that Andrew built a community here, built around aiming towards the good, and that there are so many people here both looking for help while simultaneously offering it. The same way Sally offered us the artwork, and Grizz and Nolan are offering help, and the way every single guest who comes on is helping with the channel. I really love that Andrew has brought together a community that me and Ryan can develop where the goal is to support each other. That really seems to be the foundation of all of this. So thank you very much, all of you, for contributing to the community the way you have. So I don't know, I've already been on for almost 50 minutes, which is much, much longer than I expected to stay on. While I'm feeling much better, I'm also feeling very much like turning this off and relaxing for a while, and some better music therapy to move me into a better mood. But I think I want to try to catch up on the comments, so I might try to go more quickly here, but I would at least like to read through everything that you have time to write. So Gabriel says, LOL, the last video I watched of you was like 2 years ago. You look very different. Well, it can't have been 2 years ago. I didn't do a video 2 years ago. Wasn't the first video I did with Ryan last summer? Or no, that wasn't 2 summers ago. I don't know which of us is confused because I am very, very bad with time. I right now don't know, was my video with Ryan 2 years ago or under 1 year ago? But I have no idea which one of us is wrong about that. All right, wait, where did everything go? So Tiggly Swiggly says, I love your videos, by the way, and I know you may need a break for whichever reason. I think getting mentally stable is more important. The doors of perception opens up a lot, that's for sure. So also thank you for that, because everyone's also been very clear that if I ever need to take a break, that nobody's going to hold that against me. I appreciate that. And yeah, if I ever do need to step away from the channel, I just will. And don't worry, everyone, I'm not going to push myself too hard and snap. So Ash B says, thanks for sharing this. It's a good example for others to be able to grasp their emotions and not be run over by them, I think. Okay, great. Thanks for that feedback. And I'm glad someone found this useful. So Pause Time says, I think humans aren't made to suffer. Their choices cause the suffering. I'm not sure. That's an interesting perspective. I think I would have to talk to you face to face to understand your point. It seems to me, like, just to take the statement, I think humans aren't made to suffer. I would say, well, built right into our physical system is suffering. We have pain receptors. We're made to suffer. We have difficult emotional states. It appears to me that we were made to suffer, but perhaps through choice, if we have any choice, we can eventually attain a state of not suffering, enlightenment, or once you join the body of Christ. But it seems to me, and again, I'm not discounting you, I'm sharing my thoughts. I would love to hear you explain your point of view. And I believe in more than one thing can be right, even when they can't seem to cancel each other out. So I'm not arguing with you. I'm saying that's not the reality I'm experiencing. I would love to hear how it's the reality you're experiencing. But it seems to me that we are made to suffer, and that perhaps the goal of that suffering is to learn to make the right choices to be able to eventually control your states. And yeah, ideally, the kingdom of God is what is at this top of the hill we're working towards. Ideally, there is ultimately enlightenment, and that we achieve a state of being able to choose not to suffer. But it appears to me we were made to suffer and to evolve through that. But again, right into the channel, and we could talk for a whole hour about finding out, because it's fascinating that you experience that world that way, and that may be absolutely true from your perspective. I would love to understand that if I could. So, Tiggly, that's probably the worst. For example, I was in my work class yesterday and was in a good mood. Then everything shifted and I became super antisocial and just drew in my notepad. You go on highs. They feel like a spiritual breakthrough sometimes. You can ride it and feel like you're just amazing and then crash. It's like your whole world fell apart and you're the worst human being on the world. Like some of these people on here, I use art as well. Okay, yeah, absolutely. And for some of us, our emotional states do match up to problems properly. Some of us don't get upset unless there's a problem. Like my mother's like that. She's amazingly emotionally stable. But for some of us, life is a fucking roller coaster. You're just riding high one moment and then nothing needs to go wrong and suddenly you crash. And so Gabriel says psychosis equals schizophrenia, question mark. No, for me, my psychosis is bipolar. So I'm bipolar type 1 and like very extremely bipolar. I'm up there even for people with this kind of diagnosis. Sally left a little while ago, so thanks for joining us. Talk to you later. Pause Time says, the trick is not chase happiness, but to chase peace. Okay. I agree with that very strongly. And really, I would feel fine to expand happiness to include a wider range of positive states, and where that active happiness is perhaps joy or something, to be more specific about that really specific happiness people talk about. But yes, peace for me is easier to attain than happiness, and peace is just as pleasant, and happiness arises from peace more easily than from depression. And yeah, so I agree a lot with Peterson saying not to. No, I agree somewhat with Peterson saying not to chase happiness, but I'm actually also fine with chasing happiness. Happiness is fucking fun, and if you want more of it, and you can find a good way to get it. So not fucking shooting heroin or going to the casino with your paycheck before you pay your rent. Like, not that shit. But if you can find morally good and soul-directed ways of seeking out happiness, more power to you. But absolutely, I find peace is more easily attainable and can be held for longer durations more easily. So that is what I aim for as well most of the time. Although sometimes I want to be happy, but I don't chase that super happiness as much as I chase a peaceful state. So Twiggly says, I like that. I have a peace tattoo to remind myself peace. Cool. Empress says, you should buy your inner child a new toy today. Oh, I would love to. And when I first started the channel, I was lucky. I had a little bit of money for the first time in a long time that I could like recklessly spend 3 months ago. I set aside a bit of money for my inner child, and how I handled with the first 6 weeks, the stress of doing this channel was I jumped into obsessively shopping for vintage toys. I was spending hours and hours and hours a day, and I had this little budget, and I spent like, more than 6 weeks. I spent like 2 months trying to get the most out of this budget I have. And I bought myself a bunch of really cool vintage toys. And I mean like toys, like it says ages 5 and up on it. I got some awesome fucking sectars as I was taking over the channel. And yes, I would love to indulge again. For a little while now, it's like I had this little spurge at the beginning, but I don't have the cash to be toys at the moment, unfortunately. But that was so helpful. I had a bit of money put away, and so actually, I see here Andrew's popped on, but me and Andrew were talking to Ryan yesterday. I won't get into the specifics, but I feel Ryan's fine with me saying this. Ryan just had a hard day yesterday, and so we were discussing how to deal with low moods, and Andrew, Ryan, and I were all also discussing how to deal with our inner child, because for those of us with depression, working with the inner child can be very important. And so we brought that up last night, and what I told Ryan was, I said like that my thought was his inner child should not have to worry about any negative feedback on the channel or anything like that. And I just shared with him the example of what my inner child thinks about the channel. What my inner child thinks about the channel is it loves that it got a whole bunch of toys right at the beginning. It was focused entirely on buying the toys. And if I go into that meditative space and ask my inner child what it thinks about the channel, my inner child goes, well, if the channel goes well, Mercury will have money to buy me more toys. And all my inner child thinks about the channel is that so far it got a bunch of toys because I was doing the channel, and that it might get more in the future. And that really pulled me through, because I think adjusting to this was a bigger challenge for me than might have shown. It may have come across like it was easier for me than it was, because I did massive amounts of self-care and therapy this whole time that I have not been discussing a lot on the channel. And one of them was really taking care of my inner child. And I got a bunch of sectars and a couple Crystar figures right at the beginning of doing this channel. And like I had those as a little kid, and like they're kids' toys, ages 5 and up. But I was so excited to get those. And it really helped me through the channel. I'm really like things lined up. I'm both that I had the cash to spend. Luckily, I had a bit of cash. And at the same time, when searching rare figures, it's I just also it lined up with the opportunity to get some really great rare toys at ridiculously low prices. Everything lined up just so beautifully for me at the beginning that I was really able to indulge my inner child spectacularly. Levi Prout says, animals in hibernation is a form of depression. Depressed, you should have deep rest. Don't take on too much. We'll email you soon, buddy. Okay, absolutely, 100%. And for me, because I live very much an imaginative life, I live half in the mythical world like all the time, and I spend a fair amount of time fully thinking more in those ways. And absolutely, for me, my winter depression, I see it two ways. One is it's the death of the ancient male god, that summer forest god that is born, like the winter deity is eternal. She's always there. She's that eternal background of nature, but that the masculine is born every spring and grows through the summer. And that in the fall, the antlers fall off all the males, and that the male dies and like dies into winter. So the actual death of like a phoenix-like forest god, I identify with that very strongly. And also I identify very strongly with the black bears around here and with nature itself, because winter is like death. Everything freezes. The tree, like a dead tree, not the evergreens, obviously, but a dead deciduous tree in the winter look the same. It's naked of leaves and it's not actively growing. And the way the animals that hibernate. So sometimes my winter depression feels like a death, where I do feel like my house is my tomb and I go to death for the winter and barely even go outside in the winter. And then I come alive in the spring. But also I feel very much like a bear hibernating as well. In the fall, yeah, I feel like a black bear just trudging along, trying to get the last few things done before it can hibernate. And I feel my winter depression is very much like hibernation. And you're right. If you change depression to, okay, I need to rest, the same way that like if you throw your back out and it's incredibly painful, if you're trying to be productive and you don't just let yourself rest, like it's just torture. Trying to move around with a fucked up back is just torturous. On the other hand, if you lie down, you rest, you just decide, okay, I'm going to heal let this injury heal. Then you can sit back and yes, you're sore, but if you just allow yourself to rest, you're not putting your pressure on yourself and you give your body the chance to recover, you can get to where, yes, you're sore, but you're enjoying your book or your movie, or yes, your back hurts, but you're also having a lovely time with your wife, or the kids are just being so cute, and you can make space for both the back pain and a good mood. I find you can do the same thing with depression. But for me, it requires, and not everyone can do this. So to a certain degree, I'm very, very, very fortunate. I live in a country that provides disability for people with mental problems of a significant severity. And not everybody has that. So I'm very lucky that if I get so depressed that I can't do anything in the winter, then I don't do anything. And I can do that. I can just, sometimes in the winter, I will meditate for like 6, even 8 hours a day. And like I will sleep for 10 to 12 hours a day, someday, like through the winter. Yeah, I sleep for 10 to 12 hours usually in the winter. And in the summer, sometimes I sleep less than 6 hours. But also, if I have nothing else to do and the wife and kids don't need me and everyone's fine, I will get up, just have a coffee, listen to a bit of music, read it, then meditate for 2 hours. Then get up, go to the bathroom, maybe check with my wife, and then go back and meditate for an hour. I'll let myself do that just all winter if I need to, and if nobody needs me. So I absolutely do that whole deep rest thing, and it makes things go much better. So Andrew, our founder, is with us, or was. He said, your description of having stomach aches from being too depressed to take a shit gave me a huge belly laugh. I wasn't laughing at you. It was the way you said it with your strong Canadian accent. Okay. And yeah, I know sometimes, and again, it's something I said to Ryan and Andrew last night, because we talked about a lot of stuff, is sometimes people laugh at me, Ryan or Andrew or my wife, or like, I'm not trying to be funny. And they laugh at me and it doesn't bother me at all. Because, well, I know they're not laughing at me in like a negative way, but I know sometimes I am funny when I'm being sincere. So it's not that I'm trying to get a laugh. I'm just being myself, and they find it funny at times, but that doesn't bother me at all. In fact, yeah, I like making people laugh. So one effect I have on some people watching this is I make them laugh now and then, even when I'm not telling a joke. That's great. That's not something that embarrasses me. Pause Time says emotions are just a product of your thoughts at the specific moment. You have to be content with your best and worst moments. Absolutely. Although, no, I don't think it's just a product of your thoughts, because I believe there's a reality to energetic and emotional things, and there are chemical imbalances. Thoughts are a large part of it. But I would say treat emotions like the weather. They are momentary and definitely specific to the moment. And yes, you have to be content with your best and worst moments. Also, I would advise you need to be okay with your spouse's best and worst moments again. If you're in a long-term relationship or married, the same way that you have to be content with yourself as you are now while trying to make your improvements, you have to give the same kind of acceptance to your spouse. And you have to also accept their best and worst moments, I find. Pause Time says, don't follow others. They will lead you astray. I think I'm going to try to just read off the last of this and then jump offline. So Twiggly Swiggly says it's Twiggy, like Twiggy Ramirez from Marilyn Manson. Oh, okay. I never really listened to Marilyn Manson, so I don't know who that is. And Twig says, okie dokie, don't blame you. Do what you want to. We all need a break to wind down and chill. Absolutely. Levi says, check out the book, The Depression Advantage. Okay, I may do that. Twig, so I kind of disagree with you, but I'm glad you're able to feel better. Everyone has their own way to deal with things. Absolutely. And I'm not looking to make anyone agree with me. That's not the kind of interaction we're trying to have here. So I'm never looking to debate people. The way I see it is none of us experience objective reality. We are all living our own subjective experiences. And I'm not trying to argue with anyone else about what's true or isn't. And I'm not looking to argue with anyone else about what they should or shouldn't do. I'm looking to share my experience and to understand others' experiences. So absolutely. In fact, I would hope that all of us disagree with every member of our community on some things. Because if we're all thinking for ourselves and being authentic, we will all agree on some things and disagree on others. And that's beautiful. That's not something I want to fight at all. So yes, feel not just free to disagree with me as much as you want. Yeah, you be you and let me know what your world's like, and I'll be me and I'll let you know what my world is like. But this is just about sharing perspectives, not about debate. A big name I don't know how to pronounce said, look up Alan Watts. Yeah, Alan Watts is awesome. I've never read any of his books yet, but I've listened to tons and tons of his stuff online. And yeah, Alan Watts is fantastic. Another weird name, CCMU, whatever, says, to suffer is to live. Absolutely fair. Well, someone else said they don't think we were actually made to suffer. The statement to suffer is to live, or life is suffering, or life is shit, I cannot disagree with the truth of that. I would also say, though, that it doesn't negate the fact that to love is to live as well. And that is both true, but so is the opposite. So Boy Meets Wart said, hey, Merc, can't watch now, but can't wait to catch up later. Hi, everyone. Hey, man, yeah, it's too bad we haven't had more time lining up at the same time, because you've been an amazing member of the community. I'm so glad you're a part of it. And actually, would you like to come on and talk to us sometime? Like, I've noticed from your comments, you're never asking for help or anything like that I remember, or mostly not. So but even if you're not looking for help on something the way some other people are, you've been around a lot. I would love to just get to know the face behind Boy Meets Wart. So if you ever want, right into the channel, and I know Ryan would want to too, but we should have a chat sometime just so I can put a face to that name, because you're around all the time and you've been an awesome member of the community. So balanced, where did that go? Okay, Balanced Boy says, you opened my eyes to accepting more mythology into my life in a serious manner. Okay, cool. And yeah, I want to jump off now. It seems I'm almost caught up, so I'm not going to be around here much longer. But same thing I was saying before. So if some other time I'm live, or if you want to leave some comments after in the section underneath, I'd love to hear more about that if you feel like sharing. If you don't, feel no need to respond to this at all. But also, if you want to come on and talk to us about that, I'd be very interested to hear how you're doing with that, what form it's taking, and how it's affecting you. So, for instance, you've told me that I've opened your eyes to accepting more mythology into your life in a serious manner, but you haven't said whether that's good or bad. I feel like it's implied in the message that you think that's a good thing, but I also don't want to assume that. So if you ever want to come on and talk, I'd love to hear how that's going. And yeah, is that a good thing or a bad thing? How is it affecting you to accept more mythology into your life, and which myths have been particularly powerful for you? And so the Soul Tree Project, which is my partner and good buddy Ryan, says, hey, I can't listen right now, but great work and looking forward to checking out later. Okay, yeah, and I'll probably just ask you this later anyway, but just in case you are listening in the background, I was very ready to take this down right away. Also, I titled this Life is Shit, and now that I'm in a clear state of mind and I'm thinking of you, I don't know if you like that I swore in the title. So we can take this down if you don't think it's good, because I started in a bad state, or we can leave it up and you can change the title if you want. So if you hear this, you don't even need to check with me. Just go ahead and change the title from Life is Shit if you don't like that. And if you didn't like that, sorry about that. All right, so Levi said, one last thing. What's your take on UFOs? I have no idea. I find the phenomenon fascinating. At times I've gotten very into it. I've read a couple of Whitley Strieber's books about his abductions. That's fascinating. I have watched tons of documentaries on it. I've had times where ufology has interwoven itself into my psychosis. So I've had periods of psychosis of intense believing in it. I honestly don't know what to make of it now. At a certain point, I find, like, I have no problem with crazy people who are wrong. I have no problem with stupid people. I have no problem with people who, believe and are promoting something they honestly believe in that is wrong. But we do in the modern world have so many people faking shit nowadays too. I find certain things like studying UFOs, the fact that we can't just get some basic information and that we can't trust each other. Yeah, it really digs up for me how much we can't trust each other. So if I want to look into Area 51, like both sides, the people, like those of us who don't believe in UFOs and think they're all crazy, they tell me, don't listen to them. They're fucking lying. They're just trying to make money off you. And then you go listen to another group who's like, don't listen to the fucking government. And they can point out lots of true things the government has done that has been directly against our interest. And it's like each side can make a very convincing point that the other side are all fucking liars. And it really digs up to me that whole, like, oh, for fuck's sakes, do I really have to live in a world where I can't trust the government? And do I really have to live in a world where So many intelligent people are promoting things they know aren't true just for money. And like, is this really where we are? And so over the past couple of years, I have difficulty looking into conspiracy, although I still find the conspiracy theories themselves fascinating. How much it is just constantly throwing in my face that we can't fucking trust each other has put me off those topics to a certain degree. So Pause Time says, I enjoy your live, brother. You have a very deep and spiritual soul. I wish peace upon you. I hope one day you get around and listen to the Quran. It's very relaxing and spiritual. Okay, and are you the one who'd asked about Islam before? Sorry, my thoughts are a little bit scattered. But if anybody wants to come on and explain Islam to me, I would love to have that. My statement that I don't know much about Islam in no way meant I don't want to know about Islam. There's way the fuck too much to know out here. There's so much I'm fascinated by that I barely know any of the percentage that I want to. And in no way am I uninterested. I'm interested in all our major religions and traditions. So if yourself or anyone else watching this, especially if you vibe with me and we're going to have some common ground, it would be easier for you to explain Islam to me than somebody very real world who's uncomfortable with a crazy person like me. I'm not sure if that's making sense. But if we like each other and you know about Islam, it would be easier for you to teach me, I guess was my point. But I'd love to hear more about it. And I would be interested in reading the Quran. I've just never gotten around to it yet. So anyone who does want to come on and talk for any reason, whether you're one of the people I invited specifically or not, right into the channel at Sorting Myself Out 0, like the number, at gmail.com. And we would love to have anyone on, whether you want to discuss religion or psychology or philosophy, or if you're struggling with shit and want help, me and Ryan are here for you. Or if you're another person out there helping people, if you've got some group, if you're a therapist or a psychologist or someone who's doing the same thing that Ryan's building, we'd love to talk to you about that as well. So Levi says, keep an open mind and keep a skeptic one. UFOs is the only conspiracy that is really moving, and there's almost too much evidence. I think UFO connects to the Bible, such as Star of Bethlehem. Who knows? But I kind of believe they observe us, especially since we started exploring nukes. Yeah, and I'm very open-minded about all of that, and that reluctance I have lately to research it because it just throws in our face how much we can't trust each other doesn't mean I wouldn't be interested in discussing that one-on-one with someone who's being honest. And you don't have to have the right information, but if you're just being honest about what you see about anything, I could find that a very interesting conversation. So if you wanted to come on sometime and talk about UFOs, I'm sure there's plenty of other people who would be interested in that. All right, I got caught up, I think. Does anyone have any last thing they would really like to say before I jump offline? So Pause Time says, the basic belief is there is one God, and the remembrance of him is solution to most of our depression. The basic belief is there is one God, and the remembrance of him is solution to most of our depression. Yeah, I resonate with that entire statement very well. Vakur says, I'm sure I mispronounced that, as much as flat earth, after all, whatever social group created up to date exists for some reason. Society is divided and it's hard to find peace. Yes, and in fact, with everything, UFOs, flat Earth, any of these things, it can also be interesting rather than arguing the reality of it or not. Jonathan Pajot has some interesting videos on that where we look at why would someone believe the Earth is flat? What mythological meaning is there to UFOs or flat Earth? What psychological need does that show? All those implications are interesting to discuss as well. And so Levi says, we'll be honored to talk Skype soon. I used to have a podcast, but I took it down. The Proutcast. Okay, awesome. Great. Yeah, from like the topics you were bringing up, I was feeling like you'd be very interesting to talk to. But if you used to have a podcast, that's fantastic. I bet me, you, and Ryan can have a wonderful conversation. So definitely write into the channel. And yeah, I'm caught up with everything on here now. So I think I'm going to get going. Also, okay, the thing I'll leave it on will be, I know I don't respond in the comment section much, but I do read it. So if anyone is catching this not live and thinking, fuck, I wish I was live, I'd like to say this to Merc. The fact that I don't respond in the comment section doesn't mean I don't read it. So I do read all the comments in the comment section. So anyone who missed this, who has something they felt like saying, just leave a comment. And even though I probably won't respond, that's just so that I can have some space and not be putting too much pressure on myself and getting too sucked into this. I'm trying to stay out of the comment section, but I'm definitely reading it. And Pause Time says, the creator did not make his creation to suffer, but to build a connection with him alone and no third parties involved. Sorry for holding you up, brother. No problem. I appreciated your interaction. And again, I would say I think we were created to suffer. We suffer. We were created in a state that we do suffer, but that perhaps we suffer to direct us back towards our connection with God. And again, I don't know about God alone and no third parties involved, because I believe we achieve some sort of unity in God. And I believe that we connect with each other and God as well up on that level. The whole idea of entering the body of Christ. So I think you and I could have an interesting discussion, but the overall energy of what you said, absolutely. But I see it a little bit differently, although I'm not arguing with you about reality. I have no idea what the fuck reality is. I'm interested to find out how you perceive reality, and I'm just sharing how I perceive it. So I will end it on that note. God bless you all, and we'll talk some other time.